Hello and welcome to Asake Online. My name is Zenze Ndebele, and this is the show where we bring you, lots of our interesting historical stories. We look at ZPRA, we look at the War of Liberation, we look at the war in the DRC, and many other interesting stories. And today in our program, I would say I have a very interesting person, someone who has the history, who has seen it all, and he has the knowledge from the War of Liberation to Mozambique to DRC. I'll be talking to Ubaba, who retired Lieutenant Colonel Gilbert Mkandla. He starts his military exploits in ZPRA and ends up in the DRC and part of the special elite forces, the commando. So we're going to hear his life story and his experiences in the army, and probably a bit of reflections. All these things, what lessons has he learned in life? Babu Mkandla, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zenzela.
Yeah, it's interesting that we were going to cover a lot, but maybe let me start from, tell us a bit about your background. Where are you born and where do you grow up?
I was born and bred in Plumtree. That's where I grew up. My mother comes from a certain place called Zimbabwe, and my father was from Cholocho, but he was employed in Plumtree. So that's where I grew up, and I went to school there. In both Plumtree and Zimbabwe, that's where I learned.
When do you join the liberation struggle?
That was in 1976. It was, in fact, me and my friend, who was Jeff Fatsbanda, we had grown up together. He was a little bit younger than me. I was the older guy, and one day when we were playing, we just decided, we could hear sometimes when people are listening to their radios, people talking about this war. Then one day the two of us just decided we are going. We left around, because Plumtree is very close to the border, by the way. So it didn't take us very long to run away from home and cross the border into Botswana. And when we reached Botswana, we were picked up by the police, Botswana police, and they took us to a refugee camp where we met a lot of people who were also waiting to be transported to Zambia. We stayed in that refugee camp for about 2 weeks, I think. Then we were flown to Lusaka, where from Lusaka we were taken to a certain place. It was also a holding place. It was called Nampundwe. In Nampundwe, everybody was coming from home would be taken there, waiting to be either taken for further training in other places, like, there were training camps in Zambia, and they were also training, like people were lucky to be taken maybe to places like Russia and other Eastern countries who were very... who were in fact supporting us during that time.
Yeah, so the ZPRA training, how was it?
ZPRA training was okay, I think so, but the lucky part of it is that our group, it was a group of 200, it comprised of very small boys only. It was 18 and below, nobody was above 18. And it was quite tough because, to be honest, I think maybe, instruction needs a little bit of professionalism. But some of the training was too tough. And remember, if you're in training, you need a stable diet in order to maintain that. But because of the problems we were facing as a liberation movement, we are short on most of these basics, which maybe make you, even your training, a little bit better and less comfortable. But that was the thing, because it was a liberation struggle. There was no comfort there. You just have to survive with what you have.
And you raise a very interesting issue that the training, you want someone to be tough, but you're not giving them the diet to be tough.
Yes.
And the other interesting thing that you talk about is professionalism. So the guys who were training you, probably they've not been in the front. Probably they've not been really, military generals, but they were just guys who were also taught and they started teaching you.
Yeah, sometimes, what I mean by being professional is, if you are training somebody, let's say physically and this and that, you should know limits and this and that. You can take a person through some training, but you should have limits and this and that. Some of these things were not calculated, but you had to ensure that, because that was what was there. That's what I think. That's my own opinion, in fact.
Yeah. So you finished training. Where do you go?
After training, I was taken to Lusaka for some time. We were waiting to be deployed in Zimbabwe. My first deployment was in Spolilo. That is Mashumbe Pools. That's where we went. In fact, there was another unit which had gone in front of us. By that time, ZPRA was starting to put in big numbers into the country. Because I still remember in my unit, when we entered Zimbabwe, we had about 90 guys, I think. And it was quite tough because remember, when you're coming from Zambia, you have to cross the Zambezi River. So we used to be ferried by canoes across, and it was dangerous again, because it is possible that if the Rhodesian forces spot you crossing point, they'll wait for you, and if you're inside the river, they'll start shooting at you. You're in the river, you are just a lame duck. Sorry. So it was quite tough, and you had to be careful. Somebody was always at the crossing point to make sure that it is safe to cross people. And the crossing was usually done at night. You couldn't do it during the day. It was done during the night. So my first assignment was to Spolilo, went to Mashumbe Pools. We stayed there for some time. The unfortunate thing which happened in Mashumbe was the first unit which went there, they attacked Mashumbe Pools. It was a garrison there. Then after attacking it, everybody relaxed and thought, now we are free, we have taken over. And so but not realizing that these people were going to reorganize and come back for us again. So after some 3 weeks or so, I think it was after a month, they came in big numbers, attacked us. That's when we crossed over to Spolilo. Because Mashumbe Pools and Spolilo, they are separated by the Zambezi escarpment, that range of mountains. And so we crossed over. Instead of going backwards, we went forward and went into Spolilo.
So that was your first battle?
That, not really battle. Now, battles were plenty, because anytime you could be fighting and this and that. There were plenty battles in Spolilo, in Mashumbe. But that time, maybe our experience was not up to scratch. But we were fighting. We did, yes.
You know what I find interesting with you is that we are now reflecting on your liberation struggle, the way you were doing. And then I'm talking to someone who retires a lieutenant colonel, having been a commando. And so I find this quite enriching. And maybe for your liberation battles in Spolilo, for example, which one do you remember the most?
It was one night, in fact, when we were sleeping. Usually we slept in pairs, two. So at night, around 12, that time I was also smoking, and this and that. I was smoking a cigarette. Then I heard a sound of vehicles coming. In order to check whether the guy I was sleeping with was hearing what I was hearing, I gave him a cigarette and he accepted. So that means he was hearing what I was hearing. So there was no need for me to tell him that there's something wrong happening. And at 6 o'clock in the morning, the Rhodesian forces were all over the place. That day, I think we fought the whole day with the Rhodesian forces. There were some casualties on our side and casualties on their side. I can't remember, but that time I know I lost one of my best friends and this and that. Who was the commander of my unit, because I was not the commander, I was his deputy by that time. And I
still remember the guy's name?
Yeah, it was called King. Then that's where he perished there. Then
in this battle, do you remember the name or the area of the battle?
It was along this river that is this one coming from Angwa. It was at Angwa. Then the whole day it was fighting the whole day. In fact, I think they were very organized. They knew exactly what they wanted and what they had come to do, because that's when they started taking all the civilians and putting them in concentration camps so that we could not access food, because our food definitely was coming from the peasants. So without the peasants, we had nothing. We had no food And you can survive, yes, but not like when the civilians were there for us. They were, because they were the backbone of the liberation struggle, in fact, I think. That's what I think.
Yeah, so how do you survive that battle, the whole day fighting?
Let's say by the grace of God, or because sometimes you can come out of a place and realize that it is not by that you are clever, what, but maybe just by luck and this and that you come. I think even when I still recall, I always say, even during the Second World War, when the Americans threw a bomb in Hiroshima, some people survived there. In a nuclear attack, so maybe we can survive sometimes come out of a very scary situation.
So you guys, you are in Spolilo for quite a while, until 1980.
I was in Spolilo up to 1980 when a ceasefire was declared. That was around from 1978 to 1980. I was in Spolilo, deployed in Spolilo, until the ceasefire was declared. Then we were taken into assembly points.
So in 1981, you are attested to the National Army.
Yes.
Where do you go?
From there, I was deployed in KZ. That was 17 Infantry Battalion. It was just temporary. I think I was only there for 2 weeks. Then I reposted to 38 Infantry Battalion, which was in Manika Bridge in Motare. Then I stayed there for, say, that is the time I was involved in a little bit with, local operations in Zimbabwe. Then in 1986, I decided, before that, I was posted to AABS. That time we had this British, we were training most of the units. So we were understanding the British, how they were doing their things, how to do their things, and we were sort of like subordinate to, but it was a major to a major, a British major and a British Zimbabwean major acting as instructors to the whole army. The whole army went through that training in AABS in Yanga.
So at that particular ABS is this all
arms battle school?
Yes. So
yes.
which rank do you have then?
I was a major.
Yeah.
So I was a major and as an instructor there.
So this is around 1983
to 1986, I think. Yeah, so 1986 when I left to join the commando regiment.
So the decision to join the commando, was it yours or you were posted?
It's voluntary.
Okay.
You are not posted to commando. Commando does not post people from any unit. They ask, it's a voluntary unit because the conditions there, and anyhow, the commando does not recruit outside the army. They only recruit within the army, so that if you feel you cannot go ahead with your training, at least you have got somewhere else to go where you came from. So it's a voluntary unit because what they want you to do there, you might not like it.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard many stories about the training in the commando. You get there, you had your tough training when you were young in Zambia. How does that compare?
The way it differs is, this time you are being trained by professionals, and I mean, the rations you get there, the nutrition you require is enough to keep you going. Unlike when you are, just training and you don't have any, correct diet, this and that to sustain your body, then you have a problem. But with the commando, we had excellent treatment. It was tough, but well looked after.
So do you find it a bit easier for you then because you had already gone a vigorous training, or it was like you're starting afresh?
No. I don't think you can be prepared for that type of training because the guys there were tough, the instructors they were just tough. I recall there were two guys, in fact, to mention. It was Weret and Granger. Granger is late. I think Weret is still alive. Those guys would really, really deal with you because the first thing they would tell you when you arrive there is that here we are not trying to train, we are trying to kill you. If we don't kill you, if we fail to kill you, then you are part of us. And they would not be joking. They were really tough on us, and they produced a good quality of soldiers. And at the end of the day, I think that training really helped us. Later on in the operations, like in Mozambique, it really worked wonders for us, because that unit was really feared by most people. The Mozambicans themselves knew if the commandos are around, the job is going to be done.
So I mean, you do physical, but you also do all sorts of skills to
Plenty, rock climbing. You have to. They teach you watermanship, everything. There is a lot to train there. They sort of make you a complete soldier, an all-rounder, in fact, because you have to know a lot of things in case. Because remember, that unit. As special forces, they don't move in big numbers. So that means you should be able to deal with any situation as an individual and as a collective.
So you finish there, and Mozambique is already going. I mean, do you remember your first experience in Mozambique?
My first experience in Mozambique, yes, I think we were in Guru. There is a certain place called Guru. You go through Nyamapanda border post. We were deployed with some guys. It was towards Christmas. That was a very horrible Christmas because it was raining, and it started raining around 8 o'clock in the evening until 12 o'clock the following day. And just as the rain stopped, then we with contact with the enemy. Those people were not very competent now, but as it is that it was an ambush, obviously, it was easy for us because it was an ambush. They just went into our line of fire, and then we just carried on with the job nicely without any big problem. But it was a horrible experience because the whole night the rain was on top of us and there was no way to hide, right in the middle of the bush.
So you guys are fighting and it just stopped. You have not even dried up?
Not dried up. Remember, you don't have clothes to change in the bush. When you are deployed in the bush, you only have your that pay you are wearing on, and that's it.
So your gun doesn't get affected by the rain?
AKs can work in any condition. Other types of weapons might be a problem, but this Russian type of rifle is so special. I think they made it with a lot of passion or something like that. It's quite. You can throw it into the river, take it out, and fire it, and it will work. It has no problem at all. Although, of course, it does need here and again to be kept, properly by cleaning it and this and that. But it's a very reliable weapon.
So do you have any, nice or your memorable war battles in Mozambique? Do you probably storm the Matsanga camps? Or?
We had a lot of that, in fact. But what comes to mind is one time when I was going to for a reconnaissance in what is called Sena. Sena and Tarara are just separated by the Zambezi. I think the guy I was with, we were 8 of us, in fact. What happened is, as we approached Sena, it's a range of mountains. That's Zambezi escarpment and this and that stretches into Mozambique. So we occupied this mountain, the side of left-hand side there was a saddle. That means there were 2 outcrops. Then we occupied the other outcrop. We had not realized that the enemy was also occupying the other outcrop. So what I'd done is I'd left my weapon just down. The 6 guys had remained just below us, and only 2 of us went on top to the highest peak. So when we were on top there, this guy just realized that the enemy was now encircling us from behind. They were moving out across and coming behind us. They wanted to hit us so that we would go straight into a minefield. It was the airstrip in front of us they'd put landmines there so that we could not use the airstrip. So their intention was to hit us so that we could go straight into the minefield. So, I was busy at that time talking to my commander. By then, the late Brigadier Charles Gumba, if you have heard of him, I think, very popular man, very bright man, and this and that. I was talking to him by radio, reporting exactly what I was watching and this and that, what I was seeing on the ground right inside the town. Then all of a sudden, I stopped talking. He knew that something was wrong. I could not talk. I could hear him, so I put my radio on squelch so it doesn't make a lot of noise. And I started thinking the best way to run away from him. He was telling me on the radio, I know you're in trouble. It was around 4 o'clock. There was no way that he could rescue me because the helicopters were to fly from where they were. They would refuel in Gorongosa, refuel in Maringo, I think. And if they came to us, they would be having all red lights. And it was at night. It was approaching at night. There was no way they could come and rescue us. So he was only advising me to run away. And there was no way I could run. The way am I going to run away from? In front is a lane mine. Behind, the enemy is organizing and saying that. So they are hitting, they are going, calling each other. We could hear them pulling their heavy weapons coming behind us.
So now you can't go down and take your machine gun?
No, I can't. This and that. But I had a rope, so I was waiting to get a little bit darker, so that I could pull all the guys so that we were together. My aim was, if we die, we'll die together. That's it. So as it became darker, we pulled each other, and everybody was on top there. Then I said, okay, guys.
So you used the rope
to pull the others
from
down there and bring my weapon up and this and that. So I'm now armed. This guy is called JB in Love. He's in Lupana, I think. He's still alive. I saw him some 2 weeks back and the same. So I said, okay, guys, now you follow me.
So you are the commander for this?
I'm the commander of these 8 guys. I said, you follow me now, guys. So we decided to go straight to approaching the landmine because that was the only way we could go out. But not going into the landmine. Nobody can plant landmines on rocks and this and that. So we're jumping on the rocks until we came to the main gate where there was nobody there now. Then we circled around and said that until we were behind them. They were now in front of us, we were behind them. But we decided not to move a lot because at the end of the day we'd end up maybe by accident meeting other people and this and that. So we saw a big tree which was, there's tree and this and that which has got a lot of leaves and it's down and so on. So we crept under that tree and all 8 of us and slept there. We did not sleep anyhow, just went into that tree for hiding purposes. We stayed there. My commander was busy asking, what is happening, and I'm not replying because I'm afraid to risk talking again in case somebody hears there's somebody talking there. Obviously, they would know it's us because our languages are different. So we stayed there the whole night. And at around 8 o'clock, these people thought we were still on top there because they didn't see us go down. They started bombing that mountain. They bombed until it caught fire and this and that. They were bombing the whole night.
And you're still under the tree?
You were still under the tree. They were not talking. There were some people some 20, 40 kilometers behind us. They were hearing the sounds. And they were telling my commander that the fire which is there, there's a big trouble there. And they were telling him that we don't think there's anybody who's alive because they're not even answering their radio. We could hear them, then we let them talk. But we couldn't risk talking because that was, we realized that we would compromise ourselves. So early in the morning, we were hearing everything, which was the commotion which was happening at the headquarters there. In the morning, first light, the helicopters took off. We could hear, I could obviously calculate that now they are here. That means so many minutes, because the helicopter travels about 3 minutes, about 10 kilometers. So when we could hear the sound and they were close, these people had started now assaulting. They were climbing the mountain to go and check the result of their effort. Now we were behind them, and we sensed that at least we were safe. Now the helicopters are close. So we came from behind. I opened my radio, started to talk to my boss, and we started shooting them from behind now. there they were the ones in trouble, and they could hear helicopters. They started running away and
coming down the mountain.
No, trying to climb and run up because there was fire coming from behind. There was no way they could come behind us now. They could come back that way. So we started firing at them, killing them, and then we really managed a good job there. But my commander...
So how many were there, if you think?
They were plenty. The whole town, they'd taken over the whole town, those people.
So you're talking about maybe 500 or so?
Yeah, let's say about 500 or so. There were plenty.
And you are 8?
Well, 8. There was, but we've got to pick up if the helicopters are coming. We had some people 20 kilometers behind us, but they were very far to be of any use to us, even at night. They were not able to move at night because those roads had never been used from 1975, most of them.
So then they have landmines?
They have landmines again. So, but of course, my commander was very angry with me. Why didn't you tell me you are okay the whole night? I didn't sleep thinking you are dead. I said, no, I could not sacrifice doing what you are telling me to do. Because, but then after the fight, he gave me a pat and said, yeah, clever, at least that's well done, well done. He was a good man, and this and that. If you do his job properly, that was the type of man that he was.
So you clear the town and you move from the area?
We cleared the town. After that, we just checked on what they wanted to see. Then after that, we went back. On our way back, in fact, because remember when I went there, I was on a reconnaissance mission. There was a unit which was behind me. Then when we went back, that means now we were all together. And when we went up to Sena, the rebels never thought we could do that. So they were not ready. And when we came back, they were waiting for us in Maringwe. When we stopped, because there were no bridges there, so the vehicles had to be pulled across. It was a very slow job, and saying that there's a lot of sand in that river in Maringwe there. So the rebels were on top of the mountain. Had they been patient, they could have scored quite big on us. But they should have left us do whatever we're doing. Then when we're least expecting it, and then attack us. But unfortunately, what they did is they fired 2 mortar bombs at us. And that alerted us that there was something amiss going on. Then we called in the helicopters. When the helicopters came, they realized there were plenty of them on top of the mountain. Then the helicopters started shooting at them and making us move. Because from then on, what was happening is every day we were moving, the helicopters would come escort us, give us aerial cover until dusk. At dusk, then we put up, we make defensive positions, then they go. And tomorrow morning, when we move again, they come and escort us through the whole area.